Okay, I'm here with, this is Milo, and we have the new puppy Bailey that you can't see. She's hidden over there behind the table. Now, Milo is not a big fan of the puppy. And in this video, I'm going to share some tips and secrets that you can use if you have an adult dog that is not a fan of the puppy. Now, the guardian, one of the guardians here had a really bad incident with one of their other dogs and him, and there was a fight, and she got bit, and so there's a little bit of apprehension. It's important to understand that if you're nervous or anxious, you can amplify things and make the dog think. Milo might think, ever since this puppy showed up, my guardian is really nervous. The puppy makes her nervous. When we're really nervous because we're worried that he's going to go after the puppy. So you have to be careful of that. So we talked off camera about incorporating some structure in terms of baby gates, a long-term confinement area, and things along those lines, leashes, tools that we can use to make sure that they stay safe. And the more that they happen, the more the guardian will start to have confidence in those tools and not feel so apprehensive. But in this video, I really want to talk about two different techniques that you can do to, well, I'm going to do three things that you can do to help the dog feel good about the puppy. So number one, we set up a temporary play gate in the room that the family hangs out in a lot, and that keeps the dogs apart. Now, what Milo was doing is sometimes he would come up close to it and he'd get stiff and he would kind of raise up his lips, his bare lips. The signs that we're going to be looking for from him when the puppy is approaching, he's uncomfortable, he's going to escalate his disagreement. Just like I would if I'm in a dressing room and somebody tries to come in and I say, hey, somebody's in here. If they keep on trying to do it, I'm going to start yelling and raising my voice. I'm going to continue escalating until I get my point across. That's what dogs do as well. They usually start with one thing and it escalates and ends up becoming a bite or a fight. So one of the first things they usually do is that they freeze and get stiff. They can also stare. Now I can stare at you like this, or I can stare at you like this as a dog. I'm looking at the camera, but I'm doing it by looking away. That's called a little bit of avoidance. So if you see him doing either one of those things, we want to be take note of what's going on. If you see him doing an Elvis, licking his lips, yawning, his ears coming forward, his tail going up, the hackles right here and along his spine and back here, standing up, breathing really fast or holding his breath, all those things could be warning signs. Now, every dog is going to be unique, just like us. Somebody might say no, somebody else might yell something else. So what we might want to do is when you're doing one of these exercises, have somebody come in and film Milo while you're doing it so you can see what his specific warning signs are. Usually, like I said, it's a stiffness or a stare. So what we want to do is we want to get him out of there. So when he came up and he got stiff, when the puppy is chewing on a toy right on the other side of the baby gate, what we were doing is calling him away. And then when he came over to us, we were giving him a high-value reinforcer. So let's say he's there with the puppy, Milo, and we were saying the word away. So away means just to move away from the puppy. So the idea is to get him away from the puppy when the argument or his disagreement retort is very low. So he gets stiff and we call him away. It's much easier to call him away. Once he's really staring and barking and reacting, it's going to be hard for him to be called away. So recognizing that and helping him practice moving away, what we want him to understand is with the puppy, if the puppy's doing something you don't want, he's growling, acting aggressive to try to take their stuff or make the puppy move away. But there's another side of that coin. He can move himself away. And that's what the away command does. So every time you call him away, make sure you have a treat, pop his mouth. Always treat goes in the mouth first, then he hears the word away. Then you can give him a little affection or attention. So we're getting him out of trouble before he gets into trouble. Now, the other two things that we could do is right now she's chewing on one of his toys, and he likes to have all the toys in the house. Now, having a whole plethora of toys makes it a little bit easier, but we want to make sure that he understands this. Normally, what I would do, and we started shooting this before it wasn't working because he wasn't that interested in the toy, I would get a couple plushie toys that he really likes, a fresh, brand new one. Have him standing over there. You can do it in any room as well, but just for demonstration purposes. He's on the leash, and we give him that item. Now, we want him facing this direction while he's chewing on that, and preferably sitting or laying on the floor. Now, what I would do is with the puppy, or whoever the person is here, is going to walk towards him. And as soon as he freezes, he stares, he growls, he bares his lips, any of those warning signs I talked about earlier, we're going to stop our approach. The person who's there with Bailey is going to drop a treat, a really high-value meat treat, and then we're going to turn and walk away. So what we're saying is when the puppy approaches you and gets to the point where you're uncomfortable and you say I'm uncomfortable, it rains treats and then the puppy goes away. Well, what we're doing is eventually we should be able to get closer and closer and closer. Now we're going to switch positions. I'm going to show you a third thing that you can do called counter conditioning. Now, before I do that, let's just talk about friendly. When he goes over and sniffs the puppy, or he looks at the puppy and he's not stiff, he's not staring, he's not doing anything, we're going to pet him and assign a word. I like to say the word friendly. But you can assign any words you want. So what we're trying to do is put in context. When you're relaxed looking at the puppy, you get attention and you hear the word friendly. When you're licking the puppy, you're friendly and you get attention or a reward immediately afterwards. So we're creating a motivation for the dog to want to do the behavior that we want. So get in a habit of doing that. That's going to be a very subtle thing that you're going to do periodically from time to time. And sometimes he's going to be on the fence. He might be staring at her, but he's not tense, but he's not friendly, so it could be either way. Then you could call him away, give him a away command, or you can give him a friendly command. If you're not sure about between the two, I would call him away. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the technique of counter conditioning. Now to do this, you want to have a high value reinforcer. Normally I would have reinforced this before. I'm going to take the chicken liver training treats that I have. It's kind of squared off. I'm going to squish it. So now it's flat like a pancake. And what I could do is let him chew on it and nibble on it. And I'm swishing it this way because I can control how much of it he gets. And I can give him just a little bit at a time. I can also control where he looks. So I can make him look here, or up, or to the side, just by moving the treat. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Bailey and his guardian, and her guardian, approaching us. While we're doing this, I'm going to have him seated, looking at them, and I'm going to be delivering the high value reinforcer, doing some counter conditioning. So what's happening is when the puppy is approaching us, I'm getting the best treat I've ever had delivered. And then as soon as the treat is about to go away, I'm going to cough, and he's going to turn and walk away. So when the puppy is approaching, that's what he doesn't want. So we're providing him a positive reinforcer during the stage that he doesn't want. When what he wants happens, which is the puppy moving away, the treat goes away. So this is why it's called counter conditioning. All right, so now another couple things. If a dog sits or lies down without a command, like he just did, that's a good indication he feels comfortable. Now he's breathing heavy, so he's a little bit stressed out. I know he's stressed. This is the end of the session. We've been working with him for a couple hours. But the fact that he's laying down tells me he's comfortable, at least somewhat comfortable. Now the distance matters. If that puppy started walking over here, he'd probably stand up. If the puppy started barking or more animated, the distance, eventually he's going to stand up and be in an action position. So just take note, but we do want him to practice being in the room with her without targeting and reacting to her. All right, let's go ahead and we'll just go ahead and come on over here. You don't have to worry about the item. There you go. She's got a big long string in her mouth. She's probably pretty happy about that. Look at it. Okay, kissing some. There you go. And go right over here. You're going to be towards your mark. There you go. Good lady. All right. Now, one of the little tricks that I like is I like to step on the leash. That way I can be hands-free. Now, when I'm doing this, my tests are, can I get the dog to sit and be interested in the treat? If he doesn't want to sit or won't take the treat, that dog is too close. So you want to make note of how close you were, and then increase the distance the next time you practice it. All right, Bailey, I've got a bit of a scratch in my finger, but we're going to do it this way anyways. All right, so sit. Come here. You can't. I don't think they can see you behind the artwork. Sit. All right, go ahead and start approaching. And go away. Now, puppies make it a little bit more challenging because puppy doesn't know what to do. Bailey, or Milo, I called you the puppy's name, didn't I? All right, let's try it again. Take the item away and use the item as a lure. There you go. A little bit lower and shake it a little bit. There you go, walk away. All right, and lure back in this direction. So it's important that, right there. So you saw how close he stopped taking the treat. And this is probably about 4 feet. So he's saying that's my limit. If the dog gets closer than 4 feet, I'm ready to take action. So we're gonna have you approach and not pass the line from the edge of that table. Wait for me to deliver the treat first. Sit. Okay, go ahead. And turn around and walk away. There you go. I'm stepping on it, so again, he can't go towards it. Now this is an exercise where we're kind of forcing the issue a little bit. Sit. Let's do that again. Now if you noticed, he was kind of looking down at one point. So make sure after you're doing this, you'll get better at holding the treat. I have a little bit of an injury on my thumb. I'm trying to get him not to get his dog saliva into an open cut, which is why my technique is a little bit off. There you go. So the idea for this is we're going to practice approaching. Don't do it just in this location. Do it all around the house. Have one person have the puppy, and have something the puppy really likes so you can get the puppy to come with you, be a little bit more of a motivator. How about sit? Sit. And for him, I would make sure that he's seated, because when he stands up, that's his way of saying I'm uncomfortable. So when he gets up, take note of how far away the puppy was, then back up one more foot, and then that would be the line that you approach to in the future. Now see how he's staring? He's got his head lowered. He's breathing a little heavy. He's got his mouth open. So these are all warning signs that he's giving. Now he's observing right now and he's not taking it too far, but if the leash wasn't, I was stepping on the leash, he would go further. So again, you might want to have, when you're doing these techniques, watch him and just see what he's doing. Now, if we've taught him properly the focus exercise, focus. When you see him staring like that, you can give him the focus command, he looks up at you, and then you start delivering that freeze, and then whoever it is moves the puppy a little bit further away outside of the zone. The idea is eventually to get closer and closer and closer until you can have the puppy pretty proximate and he's comfortable with. All right, well, this is Milo, and this is Bailey. And these are some tips and tricks you can use if you have an adult dog that's not a big fan of the new puppy.